Good evening. First, I would like to introduce the clinic, which is founded by Dr. Walter Longo, a leading researcher in nutrition as it relates to aging, cancer, and other age-related diseases. At CreateQ's, we are a team of expert registered dietitians, molecular biologists, and Dr. Longo himself to collaborate care for our patients. Our goal is to develop effective, integrated strategies to support cancer therapy and to optimize outcomes for our patients. The information provided here this evening is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult a qualified healthcare provider regarding any medical condition. To dive deeper into the science and real-world impact of this work, I really encourage everyone to check out Dr. Longo's latest book, Fasting Cancer, available in bookstores and Audible platforms. And I also recommend to check out the latest documentary, Fasting and the Longevity Revolution, which shares powerful stories of patients, clinicians, and the research driving the use of fasting in cancer care. You can view it in the link on this slide and feel free to always share it with a friend or a loved one. Before we start, we'll do a brief introduction of the presenters this evening. My name is Frida Hovik, registered dietitian at CCF, and I'm also currently working on my PhD in clinical nutrition. I'm very happy to be here today and to share research about microbiome's role in cancer.
Hi, everybody. My name is Shayna Feinerman. I'm a dietitian at CCF. I studied under Dr. Longo while getting my master's in nutrition, health span, and longevity. And I have a really strong interest in how the gut microbiome can play a role in many different diseases, progression, prevention. So I'm really looking forward to sharing all the research with you today.
Wonderful. So today we're going to dive into why gut health matters, how is microbiome established, what is the gut immune connection, gut health and cancer, what are some gut challenges during cancer treatment, and of course, most importantly, what can we do with this and nutrition strategies to support the microbiome. And as always, we will have a quiz and a Q&A section in the end. I also want to mention that there is Colorectal Awareness Month, so this is a perfect opportunity to learn a little bit extra about cancer and today, of course, microbiome. Let's dive into it. So I would like for you to take a moment and think and write in the chat box, how many bacteria lives in the gut? Maybe way more than you think. Is it hundreds or thousands, millions, 10 times number of cells in the body, 1 trillion, billions, millions? Okay, a lot of great answers here. So according to the American Journal of Gastroenterology, the human gut contains about 38 trillion bacteria, which is roughly equivalent to the number of human cells in the body. So I think that really reflects the importance of the microbiome, all these bacteria in the gut, and its role in cancer and also in treatment. The gut microbiome refers to the collective genetic material of all microorganisms inhabiting the gastrointestinal tract, while the term gut microbiota describes the actual microorganisms themselves. And this is a very complex ecosystem that consists of bacteria, archaea, fungi, viruses, and also other microorganisms that live in a symbiotic relationship with the human host. These bacteria represent a tremendous diversity with between 400 and 1,000 different bacterial species that are colonizing the gastrointestinal tract. And the collective genetic material of these microorganisms, called the microbiome, contains about 3.3 million unique genes. This is about 150 times more genes than the human genome. And the vast majority of these bacteria belong to two main phyla. We have Bacteroidetes and Firmicutes. So the gut is basically a central hub for both the immunity and overall health. So how is microbiome established? So the gut microbiome develops through a stepwise colonization process that begins even before birth and then continues throughout early childhood. And research suggests that some microbial microbial exposure may occur during fetal development. So at birth, infants experience their first major microbial exposure, and then the mode of the delivery plays a huge role in shaping that initial microbiome. So infants that are born through vaginal delivery acquire microbes from the mother's vaginal and intestinal microbiota. And then in contrast, a C-section delivered infant are more commonly colonized by skin-associated bacteria. And then we know that after birth, the microbiome develops through several stages. So the early colonizers are typically facultative by bacteria that are in a non-oxygen environment. And this also is very suitable for other microbes as well. And then in breastfed infants, bifidobacterium species often become very dominant because human milk contains specialized sugars that are called human milk oligosaccharides. And these oligosaccharides selectively feed for these beneficial bacteria. And then at some point, when solid foods are introduced, then the microbial community becomes more diverse. It shifts towards an environment that has a lot of these bacteria that are in a non-oxygen environment. And this is more similar to the adult microbiome. So by year 2 to 3 years, the gut microbiome becomes more stable and similar to that of adults. And there are definitely a lot of different factors that are influencing this development. So feeding practices, antibiotic exposures, are there present of siblings? What about pets? Even environmental exposures, and also the geographic location as well. We see repeatedly how important breastfeeding particularly is because it can even help support the beneficial bacteria and also may partially restore the microbiome balance in those infants that are delivered by C-section. We see that bacteria are actually not evenly spread throughout the digestive system. So we have the stomach and the upper part of the small intestine have very few bacteria because this environment is very acidic. Food moves very quickly through this. And then we have, when we move further down to the lower small intestine, the number of bacteria increases. And then we see that the colon has the largest number and widest variety of bacteria. And most of these bacteria do not need oxygen to survive. And as we can see, so many different bacteria, and it really functions almost as an extra organ in the body. They help break down complex foods such as carbohydrates. It produces very important vitamins. It also supports our immune system. So the gut microbiome acts like an metabolic organ, and one of their main jobs is breaking down dietary fiber. And when they do this, they produce what's called short-chain fatty acids like acetate, propionate, and butyrate. And these short-chain fatty acids provide about 5 to 10% of our daily energy. And it's not just energy that it provides, it also controls a lot of important processes in our body, hunger, blood sugar levels, fat burning, and also how the liver is producing glucose. We also see that gut bacteria also help process bile acids, turning them into forms that acts as signals in the body that then influence metabolism, blood sugar, and even heart health as well. In addition, the microbiome helps make important vitamins. So we have B vitamins, vitamin K. It breaks down compounds into useful forms, and it also produces neurotransmitters such as serotonin and GABA. It also regulates systems involved in appetite and even polyphenol metabolism that Shayna is going to discuss a little bit more later. Some key immunological functions influenced by the microbiome include maturation of both the innate and the adaptive immune responses, differentiation of T and B lymphocytes, production of immunoglobulin A, the development of lymphoid tissues, and the establishment of oral tolerance to dietary antigens. The microbiome also plays an important protective role in strengthening the intestinal barrier. And we have something called commensal bacteria that help maintain the tight junctions between epithelial cells, and it also stimulate mucus production, which together prevent pathogens from penetrating the intestinal lining and entering the systemic circulation. And when this is not working properly, that's when we get what's called a leaky gut. Additionally, beneficial microbes provide colonization resistance against pathogenic organisms by competing for nutrients and producing antimicrobial compounds. However, disruption of this balance microbial ecosystem, known as dysbiosis, can contribute to disease development, and dysbiosis may promote inflammation, metabolic dysfunction, and also impaired barrier integrity, particularly in those individuals that have a genetic susceptibility. So what about how is our microbiome affected during cancer treatment? So the gut microbiome and cancer treatment affect each other in mainly two ways. So we have the microbiome can influence how well treatments work and their side effects, while cancer treatment can also change the microbiome. And this relationship play an important role in patient outcomes. So we see that the gut microbiome strongly affects how well immunotherapy works. People with a more diverse microbiome have a higher levels of helpful bacteria tend to respond better to treatment. Using antibiotics can make outcomes worse, leading to shorter survival and faster disease progression. Helpful bacteria may improve treatment by activating the immune system, helping immune cells reach tumors and producing substances that support immune function. Chemotherapy can disrupt the microbiome by reducing helpful bacteria and increasing the harmful ones. And this imbalance can lead to side effects like gut problems, low immune cell counts, and even heart issues as well. The microbiome also affects how well the chemo works. So helpful bacteria can improve treatment response, while harmful bacteria can make cancer cells more resistant. Then we have radiation therapy can also significantly change the microbiome and damage the gut, leading to both short-term and long-term side effects. However, a healthy gut bacteria can help protect the body by supporting cell repair and reducing damage from stress in the body. Thankfully, there's a lot of therapeutic interventions that we can use to support the microbiome during treatment. So we have fecal transplants, probiotics, prebiotics, high fiber diets, and Shayna is going to talk all about this and how to implement this during treatment.
Yes, thank you so much, Frida. And we're really going to dive into the science and research behind how the gut health impacts cancer treatment, whether it's reducing side effects, making it more effective, and then how we can also eat and live our life so that we can support our gut microbiome. But first, I want to ask everybody a question to see if you're paying attention. Or I'm curious to hear what everybody knows already about gut health during cancer treatment. So what have you heard? What have you heard that can be helpful? Comment in the chat box. Someone said Akkermansia helps. This is a good sign. Okay, awesome. Some people wish they knew more about gut health during treatment. That you have to eat healthy. It's really important. Probiotics. Okay, awesome. Amazing. Fiber, super important. Great. We're going to dive into all of it. Perfect. So we know that the gut is the largest site of immune activity in the body. And actually 70% of the body's immune cells are present right in the gut microbiome. So clearly that's important. The gut microbiota can actually reprogram the immunity of the tumor microenvironment by engaging both innate and adaptive immune cells. So this really means that your gut is not just a passive bystander during treatment, but it's actively in conversation with the immune system at all times, including during cancer treatment. So there's a couple different mechanisms by which this happens. So first, we know that when we eat fiber that's fermented by the gut bacteria, produces short-chain fatty acids, primarily butyrate, propionate, and acetate. These molecules then travel systematically and enter the tumor and immune microenvironment. And this is how they can actually directly activate cancer-killing immune cells. These short-chain fatty acids also reprogram T cells in the immune system to make them more powerful and long-lasting. We know that higher levels of short-chain fatty acids are associated with better responses to treatments. So through these mechanisms, the gut microbiome can influence the tumor microenvironment. So a dysbiotic gut with a lot of inflammation, leaky gut, that creates a pro-tumor environment, whereas a diverse, fiber-rich diet is more pro-immune, so helping your own immune system throughout cancer treatment and in daily life too to prevent disease as well. But how does our diet and our gut health play a direct role in inflammation? Because inflammation is really associated with cancer and other types of diseases. Well, foods rich in fiber, again, vegetables, legumes, whole grains, fruit, these feed beneficial bacteria that then ferment into the short chain fatty acids. And those short chain fatty acids help the immune system, but they're also really anti-inflammatory. They help nourish the gut lining cells, they suppress inflammation and promote good immune function. And note that the ability to nourish the lining cells is really important. We're going to discuss that because treatment like chemo and immunotherapy, radiation really target the gut lining. So in on the other side, a diet rich in ultra-processed foods, refined sugars, and saturated fat does the complete opposite from the anti-inflammatory diet. So that will shift the microbiome towards species that produce lipopolysaccharides. These are called LPS molecules from bacteria cell walls. So LPS crosses then a compromised gut lining into the bloodstream, it can bind to pro-inflammatory cytokines and cause systematic inflammation, which is associated with inflammatory bowel disease, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, obesity, and cancer. And now let's go into the different cancer therapies and how the gut health is impacted. Well, the first one I want to go over is immunotherapy. And this is because there's been a lot of really amazing studies recently in the last couple of years on gut health and immunotherapy, and a really strong correlation between your gut health impacting your response to immunotherapy, as people have already commented. So, what is immunotherapy? It's a relatively new type of cancer treatment that boosts or changes the body's own immune system to help it recognize, target, and destroy cancer cells more effectively. So, this study I really wanted to share was a landmark study published in 2018 in a big scientific journal called Science. And this really changed the way that we think about resistance to immunotherapy. So this study discovered that resistance can be attributed to an abnormal gut microbiome, whether it's dysbiosis, antibiotic use, or a poor diet. However, when they did a fecal microbiota transplant, and they actually did this from patients who were responding well to the immunotherapy, and they put it in mice that were treated with antibiotics. And they found that those antibiotic-treated mice, they were resistant, and once they had that transplant, they became responders. So that was incredible. However, when they looked at fecal transplants from non-responders to non-responders, there was no improvement. So they found this really distinct correlation with a specific bacteria in the gut called Akkermansia. And Akkermansia is amazing because it maintains the integrity of the gut barrier, it prevents inflammation and leaky gut. In this particular one, even though it's just 3 to 5% of the gut flora, was really important for immunotherapy response. And this study was also validated by two other studies in the same year. So there's a lot of information about this. But I do want to point out that, like Frida mentioned, there's trillions and trillions of gut bacteria species in the gut. So Akkermansia being just 3% of it while it's incredibly important, it's definitely not the only one we should be thinking about. This next study on immunotherapy was published in 2021. And this study was amazing. And I love sharing with all my patients this study because it just really shows how your diet during treatment, before treatment, can make a really big impact. So it looked at 438 melanoma patients on immunotherapy. They did dietary screening, questionnaires, and stool microbiome profiling. And they found that patients who were eating a high dietary fiber of just 20 grams a day or more, and this is actually less than the recommended daily amount, just that 20 grams a day significantly improved progression-free survival. And every additional 5 grams of fiber per day was associated with a 30% reduction in risk of progression or death. And by the way, an extra 5 grams, that's just a few legumes, maybe an avocado, some whole grains. It's so easy to do that, and it has such a strong effect. So I love sharing this study because it is so important, showing maybe not just what the state of your gut microbiome was, but how your diet can really affect the immunotherapy too. And then this study, I also want to share last for immunotherapy, was done in 91 advanced melanoma patients on immunotherapy. And it looked at the diets that they were having. And what they found was that with food frequency questionnaires, the people that had Mediterranean diet scores had a 77% probability of overall response to treatment. They also had a 74% probability of progression-free survival at 12 months. Plus, Mediterranean diet was also associated with less immunotoxicity, which is a side effect of immunotherapy. And why this matters, why we think that this happened, is because the Mediterranean diet is low in processed food, it's low sugar, and it's high in fiber, a lot of polyphenols, probiotics, omega-3s, and that those are really the things which we'll talk about is what feeds our gut microbiome and helps increase the diversity of our gut. And then we go into chemotherapy. So chemotherapy is a type of cancer treatment that uses powerful drugs to destroy fast-growing cells cancer cells throughout the body. And it works by interrupting the cell cycle, preventing cancer cells from dividing and growing. So chemotherapy, as Frida talked a little bit about too, is very harmful to the gut because it's working on those fast-growing cells. Our gut mucus later are affected. It can disrupt microbial balance, and it even can allow bacteria to penetrate the gut lining and trigger an immune response too. But the gut has a really big role in playing a difference in how a patient also responds to chemotherapy. So a healthy microbiome can amplify stimulating effects of certain drugs like cyclophosphamide. So when this drug is given to a healthy gut microbiome, that therapeutic response is actually greater. So it can improve the drug efficacy. The microbiome processes chemo compounds, so either activating them or deactivating them. So for example, in gemcitabine, chemotherapy for pancreatic cancer, intratumoral bacteria can degrade gemcitabine into an inactive form, causing resistance. And this is more common in dysbiotic microbiomes, so meaning that it might impact treatment. And then finally, the intestinal barrier integrity can be a physical buffer during chemotherapy. So that's why it's so important before, during, and after chemo to build up your gut barrier, and then reduce side effects that way. And also, diet can reduce inflammation, so it's really important to ensure that you're having anti-inflammatory diets so that you can reduce the inflammation caused by chemo during and even after as well. And then radiation. Radiation therapy for cancer is a localized treatment that uses high energy particles or waves to destroy cancer cells by damaging their DNA. So radiation exposure can lead to changes in bacterial composition with an increase in potentially harmful bacteria and a decrease in beneficial ones. And this alteration in the gut microbiota can trigger an inflammatory response and damage the intestinal lining. So this results in these symptoms like diarrhea and abdominal discomfort too. Especially patients getting radiation to the pelvis is more at risk for lasting microbiome disruption and GI symptoms. So we do see in a study that prebiotics such as dietary fiber and polyphenols can effectively alleviate gut dysbiosis and modulate immunoinflammatory factors in patients with radiotherapy. So again, it's proven that in so many different types of treatments, a good diet and healthy gut microbiome, even if you're just going slowly, can really make a difference in how you respond to the therapy and also healing afterwards too. And then finally, antibiotics. We had a question or someone was interested in this in the chat. So antibiotics definitely, they're medications designed to kill bacteria and they're really, really good at it. And the problem is that they're almost too good at it because they don't just take our harmful bacteria, they take also the beneficial ones, which is really sad. But, this is really, if it's medically necessary, you must do it. But we really then, if you do have to take antibiotics, it's really important to discuss gut restoration strategies with a dietitian like us. You can reach out and we can definitely help you because this meta-analysis showed that antibiotics during immunotherapy was associated with a 2 times increased risk of death and reduced survival. So it's super important if you are taking antibiotics, try to take what's necessary and then work on your diet and restoring everything after, which we will discuss a little bit of how to do that too. There's, like I said, a lot of gut challenges and side effects that arise during these different treatments, and it's important to know why this happens and also how we can help this. So why are GI symptoms so common? Like I said, the GI tract has one of the fastest cell turnover rates in the body, which makes it super vulnerable to chemo, radiation, and cancer inflammation too. So wanted to share a couple tips for the 2 most common side effects during treatment, diarrhea and constipation. So diarrhea often happens because of different cancer treatments targeting the gut. And if you do experience this, it's important to eat small, frequent meals so that you are absorbing nutrients. You might want to temporarily reduce insoluble fiber intake, these fermentable fibers, which we'll talk about, and focus more on soluble fibers like apples, potatoes, and oatmeal, which can help by absorbing excess water and forming a gel in the gut, which adds bulk to the stool. You really want to avoid greasy, spicy, high-fat foods, caffeine, alcohol, and sugar substitutes, and prioritize hydration to replace lost electrolytes and consider supplementing with electrolytes too. And with diarrhea and vomiting too, when you're losing fluids, it's common to lose weight, and it's really important to work with a dietitian like us too to help you maintain that and also help alleviate some of these side effects, hopefully. But constipation is also very common, especially if patients are taking anti-nausea medications. So in order to help with this, I'm sure me and Frida have a million recommendations that we can share with everybody, but just a few. So increasing also your insoluble fiber intake helps increase transit, and also soluble fiber helps draw water to the stool, making it softer. You want to make sure you have adequate liquids, even warm liquids or adequate fluids and warm liquids in the morning can help stimulate a bowel movement. Movement also helps stimulate bowel movements. And finally, magnesium is a great way to help make stool softer and make it easier to pass. And then finally, again, there's even studies that show dietary counseling can reduce constipation and diarrhea during treatment. So if you are experiencing this, we'd love to help alleviate these symptoms. Quick question again, just to see if everyone's paying attention. What foods do you guys have every day to improve your gut health? Any foods, fiber, kimchi, avocado, legumes? Okay. First of all, love that everybody is working on their fiber and even probiotics, mushrooms. Okay. I love that we all are excited about plants. So, diet is definitely the number one modifiable factor for shaping our gut microbiome, whether it's preparing for treatment, after treatment, during treatment. These are going to have the longest lasting effects to determine your microbial composition and function. And the main goal with everything, and I love that everyone has so many different foods that they love, is you want a good variety of plant foods in your diet, which will support a wider range of beneficial species and increase diversity. So we all want those 98 trillion microbes in our gut at the minimum, and we want lots of them. So we want to feed everything. What foods improve the gut microbiome? Well, there's so many, and they're usually all plants and things that taste really amazing. So, definitely fiber of all kinds, prebiotics, which we will talk about, probiotics, and polyphenols are just some of the things that will help feed the gut. So, first, fiber. And when we talk about fiber, we have to discuss soluble versus insoluble fiber. And we want both. We want all of it. Again, if you have diarrhea, you want to avoid certain ones, but we want all of it on a normal basis. So, soluble, we can think of as fermentable fiber. So, this forms a gel-like substance. It's found in oats, legumes, apples, and psyllium. It ferments into short chain fatty acids, which helps the diversity in your gut boost, lowers colonic pH, and it is amazing at also lowering cholesterol and by binding to LDL and excreting it. So that's super important if you also want to lower cholesterol. Whereas insoluble fiber you can find in wheat, vegetables, whole grains. This does not dissolve in water, so it adds bulk and speeds transit time. So what it helps with is actually mechanically cleansing. So it can help take out carcinogens, secondary bile acids, and waste and spend less time in contact with the colon wall. So it actually can help reduce colon cancer risk, which is super important. And if you are having chemo or maybe you're exposed to environmental toxins, fiber is the number one tool to help excrete toxins in the body. Oh, and I also wanted to share, if we could go back really quick, that there was an American Gut Project with 10,000 plus participants that found people eating 30 plus different plant species per week had significantly more diverse microbes than those eating fewer than 10. And that might sound really hard and difficult and scary, but I'm sure everyone can get to 30 different plants a week. And look at the pictures on the right. I mean, there's so many different plants I'm sure you're already getting in your diet. And this counts as nuts, seeds, whole grains, berries, fruit, vegetables too, even spices. So try to count that out. And I'm sure you can even get 30 in a day. It's what we want to shoot for, but at least 30 in a week. Okay, prebiotics. These are a type of fiber, but they're non-digestible food components. So they're just specific fibers and plant compounds. They selectively feed and stimulate the growth of beneficial bacteria in the gut. So they're kind of like a fertilizer for your microbiome. They pass through your small intestine undigested and then arrive at the colon where bacteria ferment them. So there's many types, as you can see. Just want to highlight them, and all of these again are amazing to include in your diet. So fructooligosaccharides and inulin, these are in garlic, onions, leeks, asparagus, and chicory root and bananas. And then we have galactooligosaccharides in legumes and breast milk, resistant starches, which are amazing and super easy to include because it just means you get to eat more leftovers. So whenever you cook and cool potatoes, rice, starches, they form resistant starch. You can also find it in oats, legumes, bananas too. Beta glucans are found in oats, barley, and even mushrooms too. And then pectin, which is in apple peels, citrus peels, berries. This feeds akkermansia. And then finally, polyphenols are prebiotic, which we're going to dive into next. So polyphenols, rightly so, are getting a lot of great press right now because they're so beneficial for our gut microbiome, for our immune system too, and they're really key to include. And it's pretty easy to have polyphenols in your diet daily. I usually say just shoot for the colors in the rainbow in your diet. Specifically, berries are amazing to support akkermansia and butyrate producing species. Green tea has a compound called EGCG, which is really well studied for anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory effects. Dark chocolate, which we love, trying to make sure it's dark chocolate. These can help promote lactobacillus and bifidobacterium species. Extra virgin olive oil also has really amazing anti-inflammatory compounds and polyphenols that can reduce gut dysbiosis. Amazing. Something to note with your polyphenols is you probably have seen EGCG supplements, pomegranate extract supplements, but really the best way to increase the microbial diversity in the gut is by eating your polyphenols in their whole food form. So it seems that fiber and polyphenols kind of work together and have this combined best effect when they are eaten together rather than on their own. So eat your pomegranates, eat your berries, have the dark chocolate because these are going to definitely increase diversity too. Probiotics, which we all know about, I'm sure. These are live microorganisms, bacteria and yeast, that when you consume in adequate amounts have a great benefit for the host. So they're actual inhabitants that you're adding into your gut ecosystem as opposed to the prebiotics we just talked about, which feed the existing residents. So this introducing probiotics can, in the diet, increase diversity and even lowers inflammation too. And this is obviously found in yogurt, fermented cheeses, sauerkraut, kimchi, miso. And it's best that if it's new to you to start small and then slowly increase the amount in your gut. But these are amazing and the more the better. But if you need to be low in salt, that's just something to be aware of and find the best probiotic food option that works for you. And then something to know is that there are some studies that certain over-the-counter probiotics have been shown to be not helpful for immune health or cancer health too. So that's a few studies, but definitely work with your care team, work with us, and we can see if it's appropriate for the individual to take a probiotic supplement too. So what now that we've heard all the benefits and the importance of including these fiber, probiotic, prebiotics in our diet, what do you feel like you want to add that you're not already including in your diet too? Oh, someone said they sprinkle herbs on their food to get to the 30 target. That's amazing. It's so easy to do. Almonds, grains, kefir, prebiotics, green tea. Yes, green tea is amazing. So easy. Beans, awesome. Great. Now I want to talk about some tips for digestive resilience. So we've talked about how important a good gut microbiome is and what can we do? What are the takeaways today that we have that can help with resilience in the gut? So first, eating the 30 different plant foods per week. And like someone said, adding herbs, spices, different plants. I like to say every time you go to the grocery store, try to pick up a new vegetable that you're going to cook or try. Maybe instead of peanut butter, you get almond butter or tahini and switch things up. Look for the rainbow in your diet to increase your intake of polyphenols. So when you're making your meal, do you have reds? Do you have oranges, greens, blues, purples? All of these have different beneficial polyphenols and benefits for your gut. And then if you're not already consuming at least 30 grams of fiber a day, you can increase fiber gradually. So maybe you add a little bit more vegetables or you add a little bit more whole grains or nuts, seeds day by day, slowly to increase your fiber intake. And aim for both the soluble and insoluble fiber because you're going to get the benefit of the short chain fatty acids, but also preventing constipation, reducing cancer risk too. And stay hydrated because if you are introducing more fiber, you need enough fluid in the body to help things move. You also need to move daily, so that can also be really important for our stress management and for helping us digest things well too. And manage stress and prioritize sleep because also we want to make sure that our lifestyle habits are supporting our hormones, which also play a role in how we digest and how our gut is feeling. And we wanted to share an amazing recipe to incorporate some of the things we talked about, especially psyllium husk, which is an amazing source of fiber in your diet. And our colleague Lota, who's another registered dietitian at Create Cures, she's developed this recipe, which is so tasty. I hope everybody screenshots or they watch the video later and they make this recipe because it's so easy and you get so much fiber in this recipe. So it's a really easy cinnamon roll made with psyllium, oats, pecans, dates inside with some cinnamon too. And all you do is just blend it, form it, roll it up, and you have an amazing dessert that supports your fiber intake too.
Amazing. I think everybody's going to incorporate a lot of fiber and polyphenols, and that takes us to the longevity diet, which is our nutrition philosophy at Create Cures, which definitely contains a lot of everything that Shayna was talking about. So this is a balanced plant-centric meals that can be adapted for any type of cuisine. It includes a lot of complex carbohydrates, again, a lot of fiber, low mercury fish. So we have the acronym SMASH, which stands for salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, and herring. And then we have plant proteins, healthy fats, a lot of vegetables and fruits, and all the types of the different colors, which again contains a lot of polyphenols. It minimizes processed animal products, added sugars, and refined carbohydrates, and also it limits ultra-processed foods. We also emphasize a time-restricted eating window on between 12 and 14-hour overnight fast. And we also tailor periodic fasting individually. So again, we make this diet very personalized. So this is again why it's very important to see a dietitian at our clinic. So now we're going to see if we have learned something today. So this is a true or false question. The gut microbiome starts developing before birth. True or false? True, true, true. Yes, that is correct. It actually starts already during the fetal development, so very early on. Another true or false question, polyphenols are best absorbed in supplement form. False, false, yes. Great, everybody has been paying very closely attention. That is false because polyphenols are best absorbed when we combine it with fiber from a food form. And then this is a little tricky one. Beans are an example of soluble or insoluble fiber. Yes or no? Or true? Yeah, true, true, yes. Yes, exactly. Beans is an excellent source of both soluble and insoluble fiber, making it very nutrient dense. So again, we at Create Cures Clinic, we are a nonprofit organization. We have a lot of programs to offer, both ongoing support and monitoring. We really emphasize an integrative and a personalized strategy developed to support each patient's treatment plan. We collaborate between the dietitians, between us, and also our molecular biologist. And then when you enroll in a program, there's also opportunity to even include Dr. Longo himself and have consultations with him and also our molecular biology working directly on your case. And we do have two upcoming webinars, and the next one is going to be April the 9th, and then we have one in May. So again, please take a picture of this and mark your calendars, and we're going to send out registration in a week or so. If you want to see a dietitian at our clinic, you can email clinic@createcures.org or go on our website and fill out a form there. And all our webinars are always posted on our YouTube channel as well. And then we are going to have a couple of minutes, or we have a few minutes for Q&A. So there may be some already here, but feel free to write any questions in the chat box and we will try to get to at least some of them. Thank you for a lot of great feedback here.
Right. I saw a question about how to introduce akkermansia in the diet. And like I did say, food is the best way to go. So foods that feed akkermansia are fruits like berries, pomegranates, cranberries, cherries, blackberries, and even green bananas. Vegetables like olives, artichokes, onions, spinach, garlic, asparagus, and then nuts and seeds do as well. Certain seasonings like cloves, oregano, sage, rosemary, and dark chocolate, coffee, black, and green tea also can feed akkermansia. But if you have very, very low akkermansia, or maybe you're going through immunotherapy, it might be important to talk to someone about ensuring you have appropriate levels or introducing potentially a probiotic.
Yes, great. I do see a question about what does the SMASH stand for? So that's low mercury and high omega-3 fish, and it stands for salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, and herring. And then I also saw a question about are healthy fats low in saturated fats? So we have unsaturated fats and saturated fats. Usually we refer to healthy fats more as the unsaturated fats, and then saturated fats are found more in animal products.
Someone asked, is there a way to test your microbiome? There definitely is. There's lots of stool tests available. It's important to talk with your care team or even work with us, and we can help order and even analyze stool tests to determine what imbalances there are in the gut microbiome and how to address them. See. Combining certain foods together, so fruits and vegetables. I think definitely combining, like you said, trying to aim for the variety and the diversity in your intake of plants is going to be super beneficial for the gut microbiome. So, yeah, it's you definitely increase all of the diversity in the gut with that. See, oh, someone asked, what is the fecal transplant? And Frida mentioned this a little bit too. So this is not a very common practice yet, or not sure if it's going to be super common in the future, but fecal transplants are when they transplant stool from one person or species to another. And this, if someone is, for example, in C. diff patients, this has been shown to be really effective at treating that. But like I said, in certain studies, we've seen that it can help restore even treatment efficacy and immunotherapy, but it's not super common yet.
Yeah, and there are also ways to take it as use a capsule as well, which are a little bit less
Mhm.
invasive in a way. So I think it's the research keeps developing and it's becoming more common, but still not tremendous amount of research on it.
Yeah.
And then there was a question of like combining fruits and vegetables. Yeah, I think like most people, when you think about it, we don't really eat in isolation. So I think like combining different foods really help with the absorption of any food item you're really eating. Let's see. And then somebody said, can you share a plan that covers 30 different foods a week? I would say if you see a dietitian or are interested to see a dietitian, we can definitely help you with that. We like to also pick foods that you prefer. So based on preferences, culture, different things. So there's so many different foods that we can pick between, and we make it very personalized when we work with our patients. See if there's other questions here. You can always email us as well if we don't get to it. Let's see.
Someone asked how fasting affects the gut microbiome? And if you guys are interested, we can definitely do a webinar or talk in the future about this to go way more into detail. But there have been studies that fasting is really beneficial for things like inflammatory bowel disease and increasing good bacteria in the gut. So it's very promising. See, any other
I
questions?
think there's one question for you, Shayna, about the foods to increase akkermansia. I
Oh
know you
yeah,
mentioned that a little
I
bit
talked
earlier.
a little bit, but yeah,
Yeah,
definitely all the different berries, nuts, seeds, dark chocolate, green tea, all of that too can help.
yeah. And then there's a question about if we deal with SIBO patients, so that is short intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So yes, we definitely have a lot of experience with that population as well.
We got some questions too about supplementing fiber, like fiber supplements, Benefiber. Um, And I would say that that can be really helpful at increasing your fiber intake, but it's also really important, like we've talked about, to get that variety of the different types of fiber and the different types of plants in your diet. So I would definitely look first at are you having good diversity of plants and fibers in your diet, and then potentially adding that on and drinking lots of water while you're doing it.
Yeah, definitely. As we increase the fiber, we got to increase the hydration as well.
Hmm.
And again, as much as we've talked a lot about fiber, and yes, it's super important, but sometimes too much fiber can also be harmful for
Yeah,
the gut. So again, it's individual plans are very important because it all depends on what is the status of your gastrointestinal system. So it's a lot of individual factors that play a role.
totally. Yeah.
And then there's a question about is fasting safe through, or if somebody's on a cancer treatment drug. So again, going back to very individual, it really depends on so many different factors of the type of cancer, the stage of cancer, the treatment, even the BMI. There's so many individual factors. So unfortunately, we can't really answer that question in a general way. But some often we recommend it.
Someone asked how fats help us absorb antioxidants, which we could also do a whole webinar, I'm sure, about how to increase the absorption of vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants from foods. But in general, Frida, you can add on to this, but in terms of antioxidants, like potentially, but as long as you're eating them and eating good variety, it can be you can absorb it. But fats for foods that contain fat soluble vitamins, so vitamin D, A, E, K, that definitely helps absorb those vitamins, which is necessary.
And then somebody's asking what is a good brand for a probiotic that you recommend? And I would say that after I started working with this GI stool test companies, I got a different understanding of which probiotic should somebody take because it really depends on the strains that somebody is lacking or maybe is having too much of. So as you probably have seen, there's just so many different probiotic supplements out there, but sometimes it can do more harm than good because you really need to find the one that is perfect for your gut microbiome. But as a general rule, I would say, and Shayna, you can speak on this more too, but Akkermansia is a bacteria that most people, I would say, have very low.
Or especially if you have leaky gut, it's usually very low, or maybe it's post-treatment. Ackermann's is definitely low. So if you can see that, it might be a better idea to supplement directly. But yes, that's why stool testing is amazing. But in general, if you can test it, that's the best way to see what you might need.
Yeah, and also going back to the best source is always the food. So
Yeah.
food first and then potentially supplement.
Ooh, a great question. Someone asked, can diet extend immune system boost after chemo or after immunotherapy, like Keytruda is completed? And definitely, because most of the same foods that help the gut help the immune system, whether it's with treatment, without treatment. So as long as you're keeping a good gut microbiome, good diversity in your diet too, then you're definitely supporting your immune system.
Somebody asked, can why isn't a gut microbiome test being done as a standard during chemotherapy? That's a great question, and I would ask that question to your doctor or your oncologist, and maybe in the future, hopefully that can be a part of the standard of care because I think it's super important. But that's also why we have dietitians, so we can also support on that part.
I would also add that sometimes it's not even best to test your gut microbiome, like say during you're getting chemotherapy, because it's so tough on the gut microbiome when you're getting chemo that it might not be the best way to see like what you actually need in the future. So I usually suggest really maybe checking it before you go in there into chemo or after to address any of the harmful effects.
Is it common to experience gut health problem months following radiation treatment? Yes, because the radiation stays in our system for a long time, for several months. So that is definitely very common. And then with time, it usually heals and gets better. But yeah, we see that often in our patient population.
Mhm.
I do see some very like personalized questions here as well. So I would love for you if you email us and we can help you there as well. And yeah, thank you everyone for attending this webinar. And again, this will be posted on our YouTube channel, so feel free to review it again if there's anything you want to review or send it to a loved one as well.
And check out our other webinars we have posted on our YouTube because they address a lot of questions I see too about protein and diet as well. So we have tons of information about that. And if you have any questions, again, please reach out to us.
Great, thank you everyone.